Hey guys, and welcome back to another Genshin Impact weapon review. I'm gonna start taking an advice that one of you told me about dividing my video in different parts, about analyzing the weapon, analyzing the problem of the weapon, and talking about the character that can use it. So dividing my review in different way, so that I will actually repeat myself. And that's actually pretty good advice, and I'm gonna try follow it. So the first part of the review will be about the base stats and the passive of the weapon. Now, the base stats are a 44 attack, that 1119 translates to a 565 attack. That is pretty high, and so it's very nice to have. Secondary stat is energy recharge, that goes up to a 13%, 0.6. Energy recharge makes that the energy particle and orbs that enemy drops when they are hit or killed, pretty much you gain more energy from them. Energy is used for elemental burst, so it's pretty useful if your character have an high cost on their energy on their elemental burst, or if you just want to spam low cost ultimate burst. So it's a pretty decent stats. The passive is called composed, and pretty much at the refill level 1, what does this do? Pretty much when you hit an enemy with your elemental skill, and elemental skill only, so this doesn't count elemental burst or elemental reaction, only your elemental skill, you have a 14% chance to end its own cooldown. So let's say that, I don't know, you are, for example, Beidou elemental skill deal pretty much, if you press it, deal an electro damage attack. So if you actually proc this, the cooldown of the ability just reset, and so you can use it again. The problem is that this has a 13-second cooldown. So it's pretty much an ability pretty much is used for resetting your elemental skill cooldown. It's a pretty powerful thing to reset your own cooldown. But let's talk about now the problem of this weapon. So the main problem of this weapon is first that this doesn't have any type of attack and damage percent bonus. So what happens is that you pretty much the only thing that give you damage on this weapon is the high base attack. But after that, you pretty much don't have any type of damage or attack percent that may help you in a fight, especially for doing high amount of damage. Second part is the passive itself. At refine level 1, this is only a 14% chance, that is actually very low. So you don't proc this, so you have a very low chance to proc this. And a 13-second cooldown, it's a lot. Pretty much this means that if you want to reset your ability 3 times, you must at least wait 1 minute thanks to the passive. And this is in the best case scenario when you actually proc this 3 times with a 40% chance. So having a low chance and a 13-second cooldown at refine level 1 make this weapon actually pretty bad. But the good thing is that with each refine, you gain a 10% more chance, up to an 80% at max refine, and the cooldown goes down to 4 seconds, down to a 16 second. This means that with an 80% chance, you are very likely to proc this ability. And with a 16 second cooldown, for example, in 1 minute, you can actually reset your ability 3 times instead, 4 times instead of, you can reset your ability in 1 minute, 1 times more than with 13 seconds. So that's actually very useful. I would actually buff this a little. Like if I was Moyo, I would give this a 15-second cooldown. Simply because 15 is half of 13, so it has a bit more sense. But even because with a 15-second cooldown, the difference between refine level 1 and refine level 5 will be that you actually can reset your ability 2 times more instead of just 1. So the difference will be very huge. But for now, it's just 1 time more. So that's the main problem of the weapon. But if you can refine this, this weapon actually became strong because 16-second cooldown it's very low and 80% chance it's very high to proc. The only problem is that because this, of course, it's a weapon that you can only obtain by gacha, it can be a bit hard to get multiple times. Now, let's talk about the character that may actually use this weapon. So we have various, no, this is not, this is one of the character, Eria. Not you, stop, Sinian. Now, these are all the claymore character that can use this weapon for now in the game. The first one is Beidou, and I don't think that Beidou actually benefit from this weapon. Now, because the energy shade it's a bit useful, because Beidou has a very high cost and ultimate burst, but Beidou elemental skill actually it's a bit hard to hit multiple enemies sometimes, and it does a very low cooldown itself. It should be like a 7.5 second cooldown. This means that even without a reset, you can actually use this skill multiple times. So Bidu it's a bit meh. On Changyun, I actually like this weapon on Changyun, simply because elemental skill pretty much of Changyun deal cryo damage in an area of effect. It means that you can hit multiple enemy, and so you have a good chance to actually reset your cooldown even at refill level 1, for example. And its elemental skill have a decent cooldown, should be around 15 seconds, so it actually benefit from this. And its elemental burst, of course, has a very low, it's like around 14 energy cost, so you actually can spam its elemental burst thanks to energy recharge. On Diluc, it's a bit of a point, like an interrogation point, simply because I don't know if this may work on Diluc, because Diluc elemental skill pretty much can be pressed 3 times. Each time you press it, Diluc deal a pyro slash to an enemy, and after the tiered one, the cooldown start of the ability. So I don't know how the sacrificial actually work on Diluc. I think that pretty much it only proc on the last hit. This means that the first 2 hit can't proc the passive. On the tiered one, if you're lucky, you proc and you get the ability back. Because if this ability could proc on the first 2, Diluc would not benefit from this weapon at all, because the skill didn't go on cooldown. So I think that's pretty much it only can apply on the tiered slash. But if you had Diluc, you could test this for yourself. On Noel, it's a bit meh too, because Noel elemental skill has a very high cooldown, but it just gives you a shield. And you can deal damage with the shield, like if you are near an enemy and you activate Noel skill, you deal damage. But it's a bit hard to deal damage to a multiple enemy, because the area of it's very, let's say, small, and usually like you're not really super interested in having your shield resetted. And like most of the time, especially like in difficult fight, being near an enemy, it's pretty scary, because you can die, for example, against boss enemy if you're near them. So that's a bit of a problem with Noel. On Razor, this can actually work fine. Razor ability can have 2, pretty much, Razor elemental skill can have a press ability that it just do electro damage to an enemy. So this can work on him, he reset, even because each time Razor deal damage, thanks to his elemental skill, he gain a little buff that can scale, that can have 3 stack. So you can see that if this reset, he can actually gain this buff faster. And when he holds this ability, he consume all the stack and deal electro damage to an area. So you can actually proc this Sacrificial Sword very, very fast. He actually benefit from this ward thanks to the energy recharge for his ultimate, and thanks to his electro attack that can easily proc the passive. And on Xinian, this weapon can be pretty decent. Now, Xinian is a bit of a support, but its elemental skill deal pyro damage in an area and give yourself a shield. Because it's an area of effect and hit multiple times, you have of course a good chance to actually activate the passive or the sacrificial multiple times, because there are multiple enemies. And doing pyro damage is of course very nice, and having a shield, it's like the shield doesn't stack. You can have 2 shields that add to each other, but just the fact that you can reset these, for example, like to deal a bit more damage, it's very useful. So I think that the best character for this may be Chongyun, Xinian, and Razor, with Diluc being a bit of meh, simply because I don't know how this work on him, and with Beidou and Noel being last tier. And that's of course my opinion. Let me know in the comment what you think about the Sacrificial Greatsword, and maybe what character you have this on, and what character and what build you have for this. And see ya on the next weapon review.